call this meeting to order. It's the March 13th, 2025 City of Friendswood Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting is now called to order. Seeing nobody here from the public, we'll skip the communications from the public. Number 3, action items. Consider approving the site plan amendments at 2131 West Parkwood Avenue, Parkwood American Grill, which includes changing the facade materials and colors on the existing building.
Yes, so this is just, this was the original, I guess, Rancho Mexican food restaurant. They built that freestanding building, and the new owners are making some changes to it to change the outward appearance of the building. They're also doing some interior changes, but just wanted to bring this back to you all so you were aware of what was going on, and with the facade and then changing the shape of the porte-cochere. It still fits within the community overlay district guidelines. It was just a formality to get your consideration.
Do we need, let's see, any discussion? Yeah.
Does anybody know if you're going to be able to drive underneath there? Is that like drop off in the rain?
I believe it is a drop off. Yeah.
Can
Yeah,
now.
so far
I'm
it's-
not sure they're not going to rebuild it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so far it's left open,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's any changes to the actual site plan at all.
No, they're not changing anything. The parking and landscaping, everything is staying the same. It's just the facade and then the interior.
I think the only landscape change is they're adding that little planter at the portico.
Well, according to this picture, it looks like the overhang is not going to have a peak. It's just going to be flat, but otherwise,
In order to get the sign up.
yeah.
I think it's a little different than that, but close enough, I suppose.
It is a hair different than what's physically out there. They are building a rectangular like panel that's going to go on front of that front bottom peak. So I don't know if you're going to be able to actually see the peak, but the peak will still physically be there.
They've built up a facade, so it looks like where it says Parkwood, that instead of being a freestanding sign on top, it looks like now they're going to place it on the facade.
On the facade.
Okay.
Any other
So
discussion?
it's gonna be just above the porte-cochere?
Yeah, just on the front.
Right on the front of it. Yeah, that looks good. Colors look good.
Now, this is the group that owns the one in San Leon or Bay Cliff.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just,
Are you representing?
yeah, I'm Raz. I'm
step
the
up.
owner. Sorry, I'm late.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Raz Halili, restaurateur and oysterman, owner of Prestige Oysters and Pier 6 Seafood.
Okay.
And this is Parkwood, our project that we want to transform ranchos into.
All right.
So it's going to be more of an upscale dining, American dining cuisine, refreshed interiors, exteriors. I would say, it's going to be more on the elevated side, something that I feel that will acclimate well into the community, and we're super excited to be here.
All right.
Can I answer any questions for anybody?
Anyone have any?
I want to know if you can drive under the porte-cochere.
Are you still leaving it drive-through? Or
I am leaving it. Honestly, it's a bit tight, so I'm making some adjustments to the way the curbs were set up, so to make it more accessible for people to drive under. Anybody in a pickup truck, they would not be fitting under there. So that is definitely one of the things that we are going to be changing. Just so on rainy days, things like that, we'll be able to pull through, and we can have valet and things of that nature. But yeah, I'm super excited. Same design company that designed my past 2 restaurants, Pier 6 and Fish Company Taco in Galveston. So they do a really good job of not taking things too modern, but a good transition, molding the two of I would say a classic, contemporary, and a bit modern.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks good.
Thank you. Well,
Hopefully, it'll be a little more quiet than Pier 6.
it will be a little bit more quiet than Pier 6. It's not near as big. There's not so much going on, so you know it's gonna be nice, very elegant. So
Yeah, we need something
Pier
like
Six,
that. in
Pier
there.
6 can be a party sometimes. So
Any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
I move we accept the plan as stated.
Second.
All in favor?
Welcome.
Passes.
thank you so much. We're excited.
Hold on just a second. Next item on the agenda, consider approving the preliminary plat of the Bristol, subject to staff comments, located at 650 and 800 North Friendswood Drive. Aubrey?
Yes, so this is the platting the property for the Bristol. We did the zone change on this one a few months back. So this is the new senior living facility. It's going to be about 232 units. The property is separated by a street, so it's this is the plat for all of the parcels, including the 2 commercial reserves that are going to front 518. And the community is going to also have a resort-style clubhouse, the detention lake with fountains, walking trails, and dog park. But I think I can't remember if we did that as a conceptual. Is that or if we just did a? I think we did the site plan with the PUD. So I don't know that you'll see this again. I'll have to check.
Can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, but this is just the plat to establish the lots.
Do you want to go over the staff comments?
Yes, there was just a few minor comments, just labeling the building, the build lines. I think they were missing a few boxes out of the regulation matrix. It was pretty minor stuff that we can, and we also changed up the order of the agenda because we have their preliminary and their final plat on this same agenda. I know that's a little unusual, but we were trying to help them keep the project going. So the action items are first, so we can approve the preliminary plat, and then the final plat is on the consent agenda. And it has the same comments because we were processing them at the same time.
And I know they didn't get it back to you in time, but I think they've already made those adjustments.
Yes, they are working on them, but yeah, we did not get the official submittal.
Okay. Any discussion?
Just had a question. When I look at this, how is Belmont and Bristol connected? I see the terms used. Belmont is used on the drawings and Bristol's used. How's that connected?
It was for the original name of it was I think was it Belmont?
The Belmont.
Yeah,
That
and
was the original
they changed the name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of drawings still show Belmont. I just didn't. Okay.
Anybody else? Do I hear a motion?
I move to accept with the items noted by Aubrey.
Staff comments? Okay, second?
A second.
All in favor? Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. These items are considered routine or ministerial in nature and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of items unless a commissioner so requests, in which case the item would be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Anybody have any issues with that?
No.
Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. And all in favor? Passes. And then next on the agenda is discussion items. Item A, discuss proposed amendments to Appendix C zoning, Section 8.2, perimeter landscaping and screening to give the commission more latitude in consideration of site conditions and adjacent zoning when approving site plans.
So we just put this back on. This was on the last agenda. This is again in reference or in response to, City Council was considering an option to adopt an appeals process. In lieu of going through that, this change would give the commission a little more latitude in considering the zoning of the adjacent lands and maybe make some exceptions and to actually what's on the ground and under the current site conditions. It also included adding an exception of the screening that may not apply if a commercial use has been established by a specific use permit on a residentially zoned lot. So we have these there's quite a few of these in town, mostly churches and schools that are established on properties that the underlying zoning is single family residential. And then they're allowed with an SUP. A good example, I think of one is on 528, the church down across from Winsong Elementary that's been there. I mean, that's a single family zone property. The SUP is the church. The adjacent property is Community Shopping Center. And so there's an 8-foot wood fence between the two, and technically a church is a commercial use. But we're making them screen because the underlying zoning is single family residential. So formalizing this exception, I think, will help. If they want to put up screening, they could, but us requiring it, between two commercial uses is not typically what we do. So
Could that work the other way if say the building's being built next door to the church and they don't want to put up a fence, and we have allowances for them maybe not to, but could the church come to us and say we would want it screened?
With a specific use permit, you can put extra, like you can require additional site-related items, screening and things like that. So if it's warranted, then we could include it in the SUP.
So like
It
if the
just
church
wouldn't-
showed up and had legitimate reason for asking, we could.
Yeah.
Okay.
But along those lines, if the church was already there, right, and no fence was built, then they did commercial next to it, it wouldn't be in this SUP.
Right.
So at that point, they'd be like, oh, well, now we want a fence because we have a car wash next to the church and we want to keep it. So how does that work now?
So if the church was there first with the SUP and there was no screening because the other property hadn't been developed, we
Right.
would not require the fence. And the church couldn't
Come back and say,
tell the the church couldn't tell the commercial property to put up the fence.
Yeah, they can request it, but they can't.
Right. So
I like the latitude that gives us, and I think I'm not going to speak for council, but I would think they'd be on board with that too.
and it does say may not. So it may.
May.
I mean, when we consider, like I said, this, I think the section in itself, like I said, at the very last sentence is that the commission shall determine required screening after giving due consideration to the intensity of the commercial use, the zoning classification, and adjacent land uses. So that's just kind of a,
catch all.
yeah.
Covers all the
Yeah.
bases.
Kinda
All right,
covers.
you
So-
got me with that one.
So you have some time to think about it. Like I said, this was just back on the agenda tonight for discussion and reminder. The newspaper notice will go out next week. So the public hearing for this item will be on the meeting for April 10th.
Okay.
Any additional comments?
No.
Okay. Item 5B, discuss proposed amendments to Appendix C, zoning to amend Section M, commercial activities and outdoor uses, to temporary uses, and update the regulations pertaining to temporary outdoor sales activities, including consolidating the provisions for outdoor sales and special events.
So we had a good discussion about this one at the last meeting on February 13th. The suggestions that were made was to further define the temporary outdoor uses. So I did add in the beginning of the section that temporary uses include uses that use required parking spaces. So if you're taking up your required parking with tents and everything and everybody's being forced to park somewhere else, that would be a special event or a temporary outdoor use. We're not using that word anymore. If you're inviting vendors to your property and if you're using off-site parking. So those are just some additional criteria that would help establish that. There was a suggestion to allow additional time for setup. I think most cities allow 3-day events. So with ours being 4 days, I feel like the setup time's already kind of included
Built in.
into the time frame. So I'm open to, I just hate to extend it more than 4 days because that's,
Agree.
you're getting, I mean, it's like almost a half a week, you know?
I think even on a 3-day weekend, that would allow them setup time.
Yeah. Yeah, and most events are Saturday only or maybe Saturday, Sunday, or like Friday night.
night.
Stanfield does the music on Friday night. So I would say most of them are 1 day even. So.
Yeah.
And we don't limit the day. Like they can do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like they can do, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We're not saying what days. It's just 4. So. Inclement weather, we added the provision to allow them to reschedule 1 time. Noise, the compliance section already requires compliance with city ordinances, including noise. So that was there. To require the number of attendees, we added that as a submittal requirement. And then we made some of the options, the submittal items optional depending on the nature of the event, the number of attendees, and the number of businesses participating. So that was like the janitorial cleanup and security and things like that. Like we made, like if they're doing a small event, those things may not be warranted. So we don't want to be overburdensome. And then the definition of food trucks, we added it to include beverage trailers. So Galveston County Health District, their regulations call them mobile food and beverage units. So we incorporated that wording, and then we removed the 30-day separation requirement. So I did have conversations with local business owners that do special events. They already had 9 planned for this year, 7 music on the lawns, and then an Easter egg hunt and a Santa with cookies with Santa. So they are requesting that we allow 8 events per year. But whatever we adopt, they're willing to comply. They've already planned on canceling 2 of their events, and one of their events is indoors, which wouldn't necessarily require the special events permit or temporary outdoor use permit. But since we're adding the allowance in the sign ordinance to allow them to put out bandit signs to advertise for their event, then they may be obtaining permits to be able to put out the signs. So I said, this is not I think this would be step 1 in changing the ordinance, getting this on board. We could revisit it in 6 months or at our retreat and see how it's going. And, we can always make adjustments if needed.
So right now, the wording on that proposed is 6 a year, right?
Yes, 6 4-day events and 3 30-day events.
So,
but the 30-day events are for like outdoor sales, like Christmas trees, pumpkins, like you're selling something, like holiday sales.
so people couldn't add that on to the other one unless they're actually selling something.
Right. There also is a provision for banners. Like all business owners in the city have 30 days per year to put out temporary banners. And you could use 5 days at one time. You could use 10 days at one. They're $10 permits. And so there is that option to advertise for events as well.
So anybody have any thoughts on the 6 versus 8?
Again, this one's just for discussion tonight. This one's
Yeah.
going to be advertised next week, and it'll be on our agenda for March 10th for public hearing and recommendation to City Council. So
My initial thoughts were like 8 is fine. Why? But then 6, and then you have all these other ones that are kind of similar. So I'm back to what's everyone else's thoughts?
I'm with you on that. I feel like it covers most of the bases.
It does.
And like you said, we can revisit this later. And City Council still has to approve that anyway, so they may take issue with it.
Are we discussing all 3 of them under B or just the first one?
We're on the
Into the second.
let's see.
B has 3 parts,
just
right? Under the agenda, if you click, that has 3 different attachments.
so we're just discussing the zoning ordinance part. The sign ordinance part
So the first part.
got eliminated from our agenda item, so we can't talk about that one.
I just had a question about section M, that's all.
So you can ask a
Yeah.
question about that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you go to the second page, and
Are you looking at the red lines or the black
red
lines?
lines,
Red lines, okay.
and it's not a big deal, it's just kind of confusing to me. It says, must close activities no later than 10 p.m. or until dark, official sundown, whichever comes first. It's always dark by 9 o'clock in the summer. It's never dark at 10 o'clock. I mean, it's always gets dark at 9 o'clock. So it doesn't, that time is, to me, is a little off. 'Cause
What-
official sundown is 30 minutes after sundown, right? That's the official time. So it's dark at 9 o'clock. It's never light at 10 o'clock here in Friendswood.
Well, but in the winter time, it gets dark at like 6 o'clock.
Right, so
So just
whichever
make it
comes
dark.
first, so it's closing at 6. It's never going to be able to close at 10, right?
The 10 o'clock is probably in there because that's what the sign, or the noise ordinance doesn't allow noise after 10. So that's probably why the 10 o'clock was in there originally. But we can change the
No, I
wording.
mean,
if-
it's just confusing to me, that's all.
yeah.
If it's confusing to me, maybe everybody else is just a whole lot smarter than can read that differently. But we never have sundown at 10 o'clock. It's always going to be dark at 10 o'clock, so.
Well, but if they submit a like a lighting plan, or if they're having a nighttime event, they could go later than sundown.
This is just, oh,
But they can't go past 10 o'clock if they go past dark.
Well, but it says whichever
says
comes first.
whichever
So
one comes first, and dark is always going to come before 10 o'clock.
yeah. So in
It
the
says unless the applicant shows adequate lighting on the site plan.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, which we added to the submittal requirements, a lighting plan if required by this.
Okay, I'm good then.
Okay.
Covered all the bases again. All right. So let's see, where are we? Everybody good?
Yes.
Next item, discussion regarding proposed amendments to Chapter 2 Administration, Division 10 Planning and Zoning Commission, Section 2-71B Membership.
So currently, when we switched our terms to be compliant with the Texas Constitution to 2-year terms instead of 3, we ended up 5 commissioners are expiring 1 year and then 2 the next year. So we're gonna put a sentence in the ordinance that for this next go round, like starting July 1st, someone can serve just a 1-year term, so that 7 is never going to be even purposely. But so that'll get us to 4 and 3 so that we don't have 5 people expiring at one time. I I don't know that I've ever had multiple people get off the commission at the same time. Usually everybody stays on, and it's usually personal reasons why they get off the commission. But just to cover the bases, we just wanted to even it out a little bit more. So this will be on council's agenda. It has to go through 2 readings. It does not require our recommendation because it's the typical code of ordinances. So it'll go to council April and May, which will be just in time for our July 1 appointments. And Tom was going to be contacting everybody whose terms are expiring to see who is that you're all going to be re-upping. But one person, if we could get a volunteer to do a 1-year term, like I said, just to make that offset. So.
And refresh our memory, who's retired, who's
retiring?
Who's on the chopping block?
Everybody except
right.
Willie and
Marcia, right?
Stacy, maybe.
Miss
Yeah, it's gotta
Stacy.
be
Yeah,
Stacy.
yeah, because she filled Rich's position. So yeah, everybody else is up for reappointment. So
And so that item's just basically a heads up.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next on the agenda is number 6, communications. Announcement of the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meetings for Thursday, March 27th, 2025, and Thursday, April 10th, 2025. Nothing special on that, right?
No.
And B, receive the February 2025 DRC report. Anything?
It was in your backup
Special.
material, so if anybody has any questions, let me know. I think it was a busy month.
City Council liaison update. Greetings.
Planning and Zoning Commission members.
Hello.
First, I wanted to mention, in case you haven't heard, Robert Griffon, City Council member number 4, position 4, his father passed away on March 1st at the ripe age of 90 years old, and his services are this evening and then the burial tomorrow. But my condolences to the Griffon family and their loss. But I wanted to make sure that you knew. Second, I was going to mention, based on the topics tonight, that I really appreciate you guys all tackling the events ordinance that you're taking a look at, and I really appreciate the fact that you're going to dive into it hard and take a look at that and see if we can't craft something better than we had, kind of make it smoother and easier to implement. So thank you. The last is, in our last city council meeting, we just to kind of give you the highlights of that, just the very, very 50,000 foot level. We did officially kick off the master drainage plan review. So that's a drainage plan for subdivisions and things that's within the city's jurisdiction for drainage and flooding. And that's expected to be wrapped up in middle of 2026, May 2026 specifically. We did have the first reading of the de-annexation of a parcel of property along 528, FM 528, heading towards Webster. And right past the Kroger Autumn Creek subdivision right there, we did pass that, at least on the first reading.
So that would be our city
City
boundary
limits.
at that.
The city limits would then become right past Autumn Creek.
Instead of the road all the way out. Right?
Correct.
That's we just chop the road off.
Yes.
Pretty much.
That-
130 acres.
Yeah, there's a big parcel. There's
Oh, there is.
there's also
Okay.
a large parcel of land behind Autumn Creek that has a very small 528 access right behind, kind of around that substation. There's an as you go out,
Yeah.
you take a look next time. There's an electrical substation right there, and you're going to see then it has a little bit of frontage, but the development it was going to be very hard to develop while it was in the city of Friendswood, and the owner of the property, came and asked and had already worked with League City to annex it if we agreed to de-annex it. So I could give you more details. There's some things we would like from League City, and so as a trade, we gave up this property for getting out of some agreements we had made with League City for paying them some a piece of tax dollars. So more details, if anybody wants to know, they can catch me afterwards. I can give you the more background of that. Also, we took some of the early steps in establishing a public improvement district as part of, and I want to make sure I get this right. I didn't even write it down. Falling Leaf Estates, I believe, is that correct? Yeah. Thank you. JMK5, but it's for the subdivision Falling Leaf Estates. So we took some initial steps to keep that moving forward and to create a public hearing on that public improvement district. So that's going to that meeting is going to happen with public input in April. So looking forward to that. And then the last thing is we approved approximately $22 million in bonds, water sewer revenue bonds for water and sewer improvements, and adding funding a small reserve fund that's kind of goes with doing those kind of projects. So that was our agenda. Open to any questions now or after the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Continue with our communications with comments from our commissioners. Commissioner Bounds?
As always, thank you to the staff. They're just fantastic. And thank you, Joe.
Commissioner Anderson?
I echo the comments. The packet was very detailed, and my eyes are getting kind of different. It's hard to read everything, but I really appreciate having the information. Thank you.
Commissioner Mann?
I try to find stuff that you guys missed, and it's a very difficult game to play. So just happy to be here. Thank you.
And Commissioner Conrad?
It's all good. Thank you. Looks great. You did a good job.
Aubrey, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Becky? Karen? Don't let it happen again. Well, I don't have anything to add to that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And with that, the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting is now adjourned.
32 minutes.
Well, it wasn't too bad.